What is going on, guys? Matt here. Today we are looking at the Cold Steel GI Tanto. It's a really interesting knife. I'm going to talk about kind of my history with this knife. I have a really long history with this specific model. We'll talk about specs. We'll talk about what I like, what I don't mind, what I don't like, and something unique. So before we do size comparisons, before we do specs and all the rest of that, let me talk to you about this knife and kind of my history with it. So this is I think it's my third or fourth, I can't remember which, GI Tanto. We'll talk about what I think of the knife kind of as the review goes on, but I have had so many of these. This was my first cold steel knife. My very first, not the specific model that I'm holding right now, but the GI Tanto was my first cold steel knife. Along with that, it was my first high quality fixed blade knife. I got it when I was 16 years old. When I had looked into knives and I wanted to start kind of getting more high quality knives, not just kind of the junk you find at gas stations or at Walmart or anything. And this was my first high quality knife. Over the years, I have had them and I have given them away simply because they're so inexpensive and because, yes, spoiler alert, they are good knives. So yeah, that's kind of my history. I've owned these on and off for 12 years now. I'll give you guys a cue as to how old I am. But let's go into the specs. Then we'll do some size comparisons. We'll talk about what I like, what I don't mind, what I dislike, and something unique. So on the GI Tanto, we're looking at a 7-inch blade overall, and I believe that starts right there. So really about 5 inches, 5.5 inches of cutting edge. It is 12 ounces overall, 4 millimeters thick, so a little bit thinner than your classic cold steel. Let's see. So this is made of 1055 high carbon steel. It is made in China. That is the new GSM logo. Again, I don't hate it. I prefer the old one still though. So 1055, which is more of a mid carbon really than a high carbon. 12 inches overall. To buy this, you're looking at about 25 to 30 bucks, and it comes with a Secure X sheath, which is, that's a good deal. I'll just say that. That's a good deal. Even though 1055, we'll talk about that a little bit. So let's do some size comparisons real quick on this Cold Steel GI Tanto. So let's compare it to a classic, what maybe, guys, soldiers would consider, these two knives. Very similar in size. So if you're looking for something around the size of a K-bar, GI Tanto might be a good option, right? So yeah, very similar in size to this K-bar. This is the USSF K-bar. Took the guard off. Love this thing. All right, let's compare it to another kind of soldier blade, I guess you could say. One I've heard a lot of guys like to carry overseas because it's compact. Still very capable. Gerber strong arm. So about 2 more inches on that blade, right? But still very capable knife right there. And let's compare it to one of my favorite blades, Cold Steel Outdoorsman, right? So you're looking at a little bit more capability, not much though, these are still in the same 6-7 inch size range, so not too far off. Okay, so what do I like about the Cold Steel GI Tanto? Well, I have a long history with it, and this specific model, as you can see, has had a decent amount of use. I've used these extensively over the years. Matt, why did you get rid of it? Well, I met people who I wanted to give knives to, and I had this GI Tanto I spent, 25 bucks on, which prices varied over the years. Usually it's between like 25 and 30 bucks, sometimes 35. And I have just given it to him, said, here's a good fixed blade knife you can carry in the woods, and stuff like that. So what do I like about it? Well, the price, guys. I just got this. These are going for 25 on Amazon. It is May 2022. Still, even if you get these for 30, 35 bucks, I still think they're a great option and a great choice. So the price is the first thing about this knife that is very good. It's just a solid knife. As a full 10 construction, you're never gonna have to worry about this thing breaking, with one caveat I'll talk about. Another thing I just love is the simplicity of this knife. So Cold Steel boasts on their website, this is like a stripped down tactical knife. And I think I get what they're saying. It's one piece construction. As you can see, it's completely full tang, and it just has 2 polypropylene slabs on the handles. These are kind of slick, right? They're not terribly slick. I feel like they might have textured them over the years. This newer one feels a little bit more textured. But you can mitigate that with grip tape, with even taking a Dremel. I've seen people cut patterns in this, so it's not terribly difficult to deal with these. But if these break, which they're polypropylene, I highly doubt they will, You could wrap this one with paracord. You can make your own handle. You can do just about anything you want with this design. Turn it into a throwing knife. Turn it into, you know, I know that you could take these off, slide it into, turn it into a spear. They created this knife to be a very simple design that could be very modifiable without it being too complex and kind of cutting down costs. And so that brings me to my next point. Along with this being so simple, this is such this is a modder's dream when it comes to a knife. If you like the idea of kind of making a knife your own, but you don't want to spend, you know, even $70 or $80 on a K-bar, never mind, you know, $200 on a Master Tanto by Cold Steel, you know, you can spend $25, $30 on this knife, and you can take this off, make your own handle if you want to get into that. Cut that top guard off. I know a lot of you guys are thinking, Matt, why on earth does that still have a top guard? Well, I haven't had it that long. I haven't had time to cut that top guard off. Needless to say, that will be going very, very soon, right? So cut that top guard off. I've seen people cut this down right here, turn that into a more gradual upsweep, and this really becomes a Bowie knife because it actually is clipped, which is very surprising for a Tanto knife. It actually has a clip point for a Tanto, so this would be like a cool Bowie knife actually, which would be really interesting. There's just so much you can do with this knife, and I really appreciate that, especially if you like to kind of tinker with stuff. You know, a lot of people I know, including myself, my wife kind of gets frustrated by it, but I like to tinker and mess with stuff, and I think it's kind of fun. So I really like how modifiable this is. I also really like this blade. Now, I do prefer a Tanto that has belly to it, that has a sweep to it, because I think it cuts better and it slices better, and it's more practical. Something like this Master Tanto by Cold Steel, you can see this has a nice sweep to it, and so if you're using it for anything, any sort of cutting, outdoors use, you know, it just has a nice sweep to it, and so it's going to slice a little bit better. This doesn't do that as much, but it still has a very broad blade, which is nice. It gives it a little bit of heft, actually. So I quite like this blade, and I think it would be actually pretty cool to turn it into some sort of Bowie knife design. So I do quite like this blade. I also like the choil that it has. As you can see, this still has a top guard. I'm going to cut that off, and if I cut that off, I'll really be able to come up here and really do some fine detail work. Now, I will say this doesn't feather stick all that well. I tried to a bit on it, but it does not feather stick that well. So that could probably be mitigated if you ground it differently. I just think that the edge is relatively thick, I guess. Let's look at it real quick. It looks like it's flat ground. So it doesn't feather stick that well, but you know, it's not that much of a survival knife, though you could use it as one, but you probably have to grind it down a little bit. But yeah, I really like this choil. You could even round it out with a Dremel. Again, there's just so much you can do. You don't really care that much because it's a cheap knife. You know, you don't mind kind of if you mess it up, well, you'll buy another one or you'll fix it, right? So I think that's cool. I really like this choil. And I actually quite like this handle. Now, this handle is slick, and there is something I will talk about and something I don't like, but I like that it's going to be durable. Even if it does crack or break, you can just replace it with something else. And for what it is and kind of how inexpensive it is, it actually does give quite a nice grip. I think that throwing some grip tape on there would be good, but it still feels comfortable out of the box. There's nothing like, oh goodness, I can't use this knife. No, it's very usable out of the box. And again, for the price, I think that the handle is actually quite nice. Okay, what don't I mind about this? Well, top guard, we talked about it. Easily cut off though, so it's not something I don't like because it's just so easily modifiable. Something else I don't mind on it is the steel. Now, the steel is kind of close to being in something I don't like because 1055, Cold Steel calls it high carbon, but 1055 is really a mid carbon. So let's see, what do I have on the table? You have a knife like the K-bar, which is made of 1095 high carbon steel, and there's just more carbon in the steel, which adds increased edge retention, right? This is going to be very, very tough because it's a softer steel, so it's going to be able to take a lot of abuse. Maybe not as much as this, but 1095 is still very tough. So it's just a lower carbon steel that's not going to hold an edge all that well. Sorry about that, guys. It's not going to hold an edge all that well, but it's still, I think it's reasonable for this price range, and given that it's not like 420J that's just going to chip out on you, it's going to be very tough. You might be sharpening it more, but you know, overall it sits okay with me. It's not great, you know, but for the price, I think it's all right. But it's something I don't mind because, of course, I'm going to prefer 3V, right? You're not getting 3V for $25, guys. No way. All right. What don't I like? So every single GI Tanto I have had, after a little bit of use, a little bit of batoning, let's see if you can hear this. Yeah, you can hear that. The handle scales come loose at first. What I have found is after they come loose, I tighten them, which it's just Allen screws on the other side. They don't come loose again after that. So no big deal, right? It's not really an issue. I've had a lot more expensive knives that has happened to. You could always throw Loctite in there. So not a huge deal, but it's still something that I don't quite like. So a couple more things I don't like. That tip. So usually a tip on a Tanto is quite stout. Look at this. That is quite thin, right? That's very thin. That's like buoy thin because this is kind of clipped. So I think that's a little bit too thin. And when I've used these for throwing, I'm not like a huge knife thrower, though I do occasionally do that. It's fun. I enjoy it, but I don't do it all the time. Those tips will bend. So if they bend, they break, you can regrind it, no big deal. But still, that's quite thin. I would have preferred, especially a Tanto design like this, to have a thicker tip. So last thing I don't particularly love, yeah, all right, SecureX sheaths. In my last video, I talked about my gripes with SecureX sheaths, though this one's actually not bad. That clicks very nicely. Honestly, this has some of the best retention of a SecureX sheath, no rattle at all, that I've used, but this is gonna dull this blade quite easily. This is 1055, it's a soft steel. This is going to dull this blade. Even if I'm drawing the spinal on it, guys, there's just no way around it. You're still gonna get that dulled edge. So the retention isn't the issue on this one, but it's the issue on, I just got this one real quick. And Cold Steel, I love you to death, but look at this. I got this Drop Forge Hunter. It just comes right out. There's no retention at all. And then some knives that I've used, they just have way too much retention, so you just never know. This particularly fits nicely, but it's gonna dull that blade quite a bit. So I wish I didn't have to say it, but don't particularly like these SecureX sheaths anymore. Okay, so what's unique? Well, guys, this, as I said, is a modder stream, and I think that's what's super unique about it. So it's not like the most amazing knife out of package, but let's compare it to a knife I really love. So we'll bring the Master Tanto back on. Here we go. Let's wipe this blade off because we want her to look nice and pretty, huh? So this out of the box is like a gorgeous knife. It's one of my favorite knives. It's like perfect to me. Like this knife is just perfectly designed. I don't want anything to change on it. This was a lot more expensive than this. What's cool about this is you get this if you want kind of a beater knife that you want to be able to throw, just thrash, not really care what happens to it. If it breaks, who cares? If you mod it, you mess it up, who cares? It's just so cool that you can have all this modularity option in such an inexpensive knife. And so that's what I think is unique about it, is how much modularity you have for how inexpensive it is. Even though it's not the best steel, not the best, handle design, overall, I think it's really unique that you can modify this to your liking. So what do you guys think of the Cold Steel GI Tanto? Overall, it's an absolute recommend from me. I'm gonna hang on to this one. Maybe I'll give it away, and then in a year I'll buy another one. Who knows? That's what's so cool about this knife, is you can use it for whatever you choose to use it for, right? So, all right, guys, thanks so much for watching. Let me know what you think of the Cold Steel GI Tanto in the comments. Make sure to like and subscribe, and we will see you in the next video. Peace.